In the year 1855, an 18-year-old girl, still a virgin, was sold like a piece of property. No one could have imagined that this cold marriage would set off a tragedy that would shake all of Wyoming. The winter wind whistled across the plains. Snow buried every trace of the past. On the porch of a weathered old house, Abigail Ross stood silently. She was only 18, but today she was no longer a young maiden. She was about to become the unwilling wife of a widowed rancher with 3 small children. Inside the house, her aging uncle said with an icy voice, "This girl is untouched, strong enough to work. I am selling her to you, and that is the end of it." Jonathan Harrington, a wealthy rancher, simply set down a heavy bag of coins, then wordlessly took Abigail away. The carriage rolled through the blizzard. Abigail knew, from this very moment, her fate belonged to a man she barely knew. And you will not believe what awaited her at that ranch. If you want to know what happens next, make sure you subscribe so you will not miss it. The first days at the Harrington farm passed heavily. Abigail woke before sunrise, fumbling with chores she had never done before, hauling freezing water from the well, struggling to light the stubborn coal stove, hanging laundry in the biting wind. Sometimes the bread burned, sometimes the chickens chased her around the yard. Jonathan never scolded her, nor did he speak much. But on the kitchen shelf, Abigail began to notice little notes. Use oak wood, it keeps the fire longer. Annie likes her porridge with a sprinkle of cinnamon. And one morning, tucked inside a cracked porcelain bowl, you do not have to do everything, just try. At night, when she had already gone to bed, someone quietly washed the dishes, finished baking the bread, stacked the firewood neatly. Jonathan never mentioned it, but that silence was warmer than any words. The children remained distant. Samuel, the eldest, was the coldest of all. For 3 weeks, he did not say a single word to Abigail, until one evening she baked honey biscuits and quietly left one outside his door. The next morning, the plate was gone. In its place lay a small pine cone, clumsily inked with black doodles. The boy said nothing. Abigail did not ask. But at that very moment, she knew. The ice had begun to crack. That same afternoon, she found the stove polished until it shone. It was no longer just distance. It was a rough little hand trying to say something. For the first time, Abigail took a deep breath, and she did not tremble. But soon, an unexpected event struck. This time, threatening the life of one of the children. The sickness came suddenly. One morning, Annie pushed away her porridge, her face burning red, shivering under the blanket. In her delirium, she called out for the mother she had lost. Abigail was not allowed to panic. She pressed cool cloths to the girl's forehead, held her tightly in her arms to give her warmth. For 3 nights straight, she stayed awake, singing softly, touching honey to Annie's cracked lips. Outside the window, Jonathan stood motionless in the snow, watching but unable to step inside. On the morning of the 4th day, Annie's breath grew calm. She opened her eyes, clutched Abigail's dress, and whispered, "Thank you, Mama Abby." That single word shattered the heavy ice inside the house. That evening, for the first time, all 3 children sat around the fireplace to hear her tell stories. Samuel still kept his distance, but his eyes were no longer cold. A few days later, when Abigail placed a small cross on Clara's grave, Samuel muttered quietly, "You spelled Mother's name right." The house had begun to change, but Abigail did not yet know. Another storm was coming, one from outside, that would break this fragile peace. One winter night, Abigail happened to overhear Jonathan speaking with a strange man outside the stable. His voice was cold. "I took her only because it was convenient. There are no feelings." The words cut like a knife. Abigail returned to the house, left a letter beside the leather belt Jonathan had once sewn for her, then wrapped herself in a cloak and stepped into the snow. The children woke up, crying her name. Jonathan rushed in, saw the letter. His face went pale. At once he mounted his horse and rode into the storm. At last he found Abigail curled up by a frozen stream. Jonathan knelt, his voice breaking. "I never wanted you to hear that. I only said it to keep him away. But I hurt you instead," he confessed. Ever since Clara died, his heart had been locked. Only when Abigail came, bringing laughter back to the children, did he realize the house was alive again. Tears ran down his weathered face. "I never thanked you, Lee," Abigail whispered. "I only want to be seen as someone who matters." Jonathan pulled her into his arms. "You matter, more than you ever believe." Spring returned to Montana. Snow melted, fresh grass and wildflowers spread like a green quilt. One morning, Jonathan saddled the horses, simply saying, "Ride with me." They crossed the fields, stopping in a valley full of blossoms. Beneath an old oak stood a stone marker. Clara Harrington, beloved wife, cherished mother. Jonathan removed his hat, his voice deep. "This is where she believed heaven was real. I scattered her ashes here, swore to keep that memory forever." From his pocket, he drew out a string of old pearls and placed it in Abigail's hand. "My mother gave these to Clara on her wedding day. Tradition says they should belong to the woman who raises the children." He lifted his eyes, no longer avoiding hers. "When we married, I did not give them to you, because I did not believe it was truly a marriage. But now it is different. I have seen you soothe Annie, teach Daniel, soften Samuel's gloom. If one day they say the word mother again, I believe it will be for you." Jonathan held out his hand, not forcing, only inviting. "I want the children to grow up calling you mother." In the spring breeze, Abigail trembled as she put on the pearls. She did not need words. Her eyes gave the answer. The storm struck. The horses went wild. In the chaos, Samuel shoved Daniel to safety, but fell himself, blood spreading across his temple. Jonathan held him, his voice shaking, calling his son's name. Days passed, with Samuel unconscious. Abigail never left his side, reading the Bible, whispering prayers. Jonathan blamed himself. "I made him carry too much too soon." Abigail clasped his hand. "No, he saved his brother. That is strength." Lo. On the fourth night, in the silence, Samuel's fingers twitched. His eyes opened, and he whispered, "Mama, did you cry for me?" Tears streamed down Abigail's face. Jonathan collapsed at the doorway, his heart breaking open. Weeks later, beneath the oak where Clara rested, a simple wedding took place. Abigail wore an ivory gown, the heirloom pearls around her neck. The 3 children held her hands, walking her to their father. Jonathan squeezed her hand, steady and sure. "You are not only my wife, you are the home I thought I had lost." Abigail replied, her voice trembling. "And the children, they taught me how to stay." As they kissed in the spring air, children's laughter mingled with the wind. For the first time, that house had truly become a home. That very afternoon, a carriage stopped in front of the Harrington ranch. The uncle, the man who once sold Abigail, stepped down, his face hollow, his voice rough and trembling. "I was wrong. I sold you like a sack of flour, and God knows I have paid for it." Abigail looked at him for a long time. Then she answered, calm but firm, "You stole my choice, but that path led me to a true home. I forgive you, but I will not forget." The uncle left in silence. Jonathan held her close. "You did not have to do that. I needed to, for myself." A few weeks later, Beneath the spring rain, Abigail laid her hand on her belly, where new life was quietly growing. Jonathan whispered, "You did not only save me, you saved this whole house." Together, the family planted a cotton tree beside the old oak. Jonathan pressed the soil, his voice deep. "This is a promise." Abigail smiled. "And when it blooms, we will know that love still lives here." End. And that love did live. Through every season, through every generation. If you believe in the power of love and forgiveness, leave a like, share this video, and do not forget to subscribe for more stories that touch the heart.